Welcome you to our December 15th meeting of the Joplin Schools Board of Education. Ms. Pat, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes. Derek Gander.
Present.
Lori Musser.
Here.
Dr. Joseph.
Here.
Debbie Fort. Present. Jeff Cook.
Present.
Brent Jordan.
Present.
Sheriff Jermont.
Here, thank you, Pat. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oops, Karen, you all right? Okay. Have the board members had an opportunity to review our agenda?
Yes.
Do I have a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Lori. And seconded by Derek. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. We approve our agenda as presented. Please vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Derek?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And yes, that brings me to our reports, my celebrations this evening, our celebrations. You with me here, Eric? We're celebrating. You're okay.
He's got a lot to manage over there.
Absolutely. Should be wearing a parka, like I am. Okay, Franklin Tech and Joplin High School students challenged other schools in the district to partner with them and raise $5,000 for Christmas of Hope. Each class was challenged to raise $50 to sponsor Christmas gifts for one foster child in Jasper County. The students raised $5,500 to help 110 of the approximately 600 foster children in Jasper County. What a worthy cause. Mr. Lauren Curtis, Franklin Tech construction technology teacher, is the sponsor of the annual fundraiser. Thank you all for your participation in Christmas of Hope 2020. Jet HD MSSU Media Showcase winners. Joplin Schools TV production students earned 2 first-place awards at the MSSU Media Showcase. Senior Logan Earl earned first place in the comedy category with his video Pepsi versus Coke. In the video, the taste challenge is fought with lightsabers. Senior Nathan Goswick's video Plastic Bags earned first place in the PSA category. The video details how the bags pollute the environment. That's certainly an important public service announcement for us to be aware of. Good job, folks.
Pepsi, go Pepsi.
Uh-oh, we got a bias on our board here. Partnering to protect Missouri schools. CFI Logistics partnered with Joplin Schools again to deliver masks to schools in the southwest region of Missouri. The masks were acquired by SEMA and distributed to schools statewide. Thank you, CFI. She's in the cards. Kelsey Norman third grader Chloe Hodges, or Chloe Hodges, I'm sure I apologize for not pronouncing that correctly one time, won first place in the Winter Wonderland Christmas card coloring contest sponsored by Arvest Bank and the Joplin Globe. For her efforts, Chloe received $100, a stack for her prize-winning cards, and a Christmas ornament. You can see her work there. It's fantastic. Great job, Chloe. I think that's it for our celebrations this evening. That brings us to our Board of Education Policy Committee. Brent, do you have anything on that?
Sure. We did not meet since the last time we met, but we do have 2 policies up for first read. Both stem from the House Bill 604 from last year, the bill that keeps on giving. There's 2 different policies. One deals with the mandating of school districts and how they will appropriately provide sexual education in the classroom, curriculum-wise, and then how administrators investigate child abuse. And so this has bounced around the policy committee a couple of times, and then we sent that out to district administration and counselors and local agencies to kind of sift through the jargon and whatnot to make sure that the policy's sound and good for our district. So we believe that that's what you'll have in front of you. And then there's 8 policies for second read as well tonight.
Thank you, Brent, very much. Does anybody have any questions of Brent or me, especially Brent, concerning our policy committee? That brings us to our superintendent's data report.
And the first data report we have is our audit report, and I believe we're getting Mandy Collin on virtually to...
That's what
We're trying.
Okay. And then she'll share with us the highlights, and then later on in your action items, you will see actually the board approval of that report. But she's going to share the highlights if we can get that going next. And if it's going to take a bit, we could move on maybe to the next item.
Yeah.
Do you want to move on?
Okay.
Well, we have Chad Greer and Aaron Hyde Crosland is here as well. So if you want to flip that in our agenda, we can go over that report. And I think you guys also have a PowerPoint that you'll be using too.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, everyone.
Oh,
Hello.
We've got a lot of information to share tonight, and Eric, if you were able to access that, thank you. Oh, wait, yeah, yours is in my email.
This may save us time or not.
It's okay. What'd we do before technology?
I don't know.
We just randomly talk that.
Yeah,
Overhead projectors.
yeah. When I was a
Transparency
kid,
slides.
when I was a kid, we got to watch a lot of movies in grade school. They were always kind of taped together.
Yeah, reel to reel.
Yeah.
I
had it
remember
broke
that.
sometimes.
And we used the overhead projector and then the flip charts.
Peter and the Wolf. Dynamite stuff.
Mimeograph, that's what it is. I remember those two. I remember going through student teaching and having to learn how to do a mimeograph.
Oh, I saw it.
There it
There
is.
it is.
Which one you got?
Oh, can you hit present? Okay.
Okay, we're in business.
Here we go. Well, thank you all again. We'll jump right into it. I know we've got a lot to cover tonight. Wanted to give you a brief update on the Kelsey Norman edition. If you'll recall from our pre-bond project budget at 2.9, on 10/20, we did a 50% construction documents update. At that time, we were projected to be over around 135,000 on bid day, which occurred last week. We were happy to report $180,000 under budget. So definitely in a good direction. Crossland is still working on the guaranteed maximum price. That number could go up as potential savings on that project, and you're anticipating to have all that put together for Monday. Yes. Still built within the project budget. We have the construction contingencies, the design estimating contingencies, as well as the owner contingency for an amount of $302,000. So Kelsey Norman in really great shape.
Thank you, Chad. That's very good.
Yeah, and
Thank you, Crossland.
I don't know where do I point this? Eric, you may have to advance at this.
Okay.
Soon we working.
Oh, it's because I changed focus. Go now.
Great. Wanted to provide an update on the new elementary school at Dover Hill. We've been working furiously to start developing spaces outside of the school. Additionally, we've started some preliminary concept planning for the interior design scheme, which we anticipate being able to provide an update for you on what the school looks like on the inside in one of the upcoming meetings, hopefully January, maybe February. But we've updated the exterior renderings. Some of these views will look familiar, although there's various detail that's been included now in the refinement. This is the view of the main entry on the north side of the building from the parking lot. This is the view from the northeast, as if you would be headed southbound on Main Street looking towards the front entry.
And you'll notice that we have those balconies enclosed.
Right.
Now.
The balconies have since been removed and are enclosed. And some of that space was put back into the school to allow for future programming and flexibility in the school. This is a view of the southeast looking towards the northwest, and you'll see that again we've started really developing what the space outside the kindergarten areas looks like on the ground floor, and
Directly behind those shade structures is the media center. So we've spent a lot of time developing the outdoor spaces that not only support the K spaces, but also give some flexibility for outdoor learning opportunities directly outside the media center. Okay. Wanted to talk a little bit about the process we go through and the phase at which we're at in the overall development. As you know, we started with planning and programming. It was very, kind of high level, just looking at doing space and square footage comparisons between the existing schools. And then we move into schematic design phase, which is where we start to develop what the school looks like, all the spaces that are contained within it. The phase we're at now is called design development, and that's where we spend a lot of time having conversations with the end users, the teachers, administration, and staff to fully understand all of the specific requirements associated with the building, what happens inside the space, what the millwork looks like, storage capacities. We get into a lot of detail in this phase, and represented within design development, that is currently where we are. We're approaching about 80% design development phase. Recently, we submitted 50% design development plans to Crossland, and Crossland spent some time updating the numbers based on where we're at. As a summary, in the previous update provided to you on 10/22, we had a pre-bond building budget of 14.175, and we showed that we were a little bit over our initial pre-bond budget. Some of that was due to some site arrangement of the building and moving some spaces around, but the bulk of the costs were associated in dirt work and some of the things associated with getting the site prepped for the building itself. And that represented about $850,000 overage on 10/22. At that time, we had, as shown there, about $1.5 million in contingencies built into that budget. But since then, now that we know more, now that we've spent more time having conversations with everybody that's going to be in the building, again, we gave Crossland the opportunity to get a snapshot in time of where we were with the budget. Right now, as of a couple of days ago, when we received the numbers, we are about 1.7, and that includes the previous 850,000 overage. Some of those increases were due to expansion and additional space within the school. Listed there, we've included additional space and programming for the SPED area, and all of that to assist the district and community in some programming space that was needed. I think currently they're at capacity with a lot of the other SPED spaces. I can let others speak to that if there are questions around that.
Well, and currently for our high-need special education students at both West Central and Columbia, they're not served in their home zone. We have to send them out to areas where our CBSS classrooms exist. So for future programming, we felt it was important to have that capacity within this elementary school. And then also because of the way the configuration of the building lies, that actually expanded some of our, what we would call our safe room or safe area space as well. So it wasn't just for the classroom space, but the associated costs of that space. So it's an enhancement in programming, but also in safety.
Right. Thank you. Additionally, at the last meeting, we talked about the balconies, and after looking at it, really, we felt like it was a good flexibility within the school to put that space as enclosed space within the school, which would allow additional areas if kindergarten need to expand to other locations, it would allow them that opportunity. So really building some future-proofing into the building, that was included in that scope increase as well. Also, along with that, we spent a lot of time talking about the electrical capacity of the school. One of the things that we realize is it's never going to be cheaper than it is today to do something you might want to do in the future, specifically as it relates to the electrical capacity of the school. Bringing in the power now, bringing in the additional panels that would support an expansion if it's needed in the future. Also, we added a little bit of square footage to the kitchen space, and we had several meetings with Rick Kinkle and his staff to develop the kitchen. And after really looking at it from where we were in pre-bond to where we are now, we needed to give them a little space to be able to support the students anticipated in the school. Additionally, there were some more updates that we, as we got into the site, we started looking at some safety and security considerations for the outdoor play spaces, adding some additional runs of fencing. And then along the west side of the site, there's that borders the train tracks. We felt like adding additional fencing along the train tracks was good measure and barrier from the train tracks as well. Additionally, there have been a lot of conversations and continuing conversation about how to adequately drain the site. A lot of the water goes in a lot of different directions from the site itself, and giving it crowns on the center and kind of tapers to the north, the south. And so how we pick up that water and take it to off-site, there are a lot of requirements, both state and city, for making sure that it's done appropriately. And so we've included in there some updates that weren't in the previous schematic design phase. As an update, the building from pre-bond has increased in square footage about 3,000 square feet. And taking where we're at in the budget, that roughly translates to about 840,000 square feet of additional cost. So again, the overage we see at this point is the additional square footage and items associated with just developing the site and stormwater. So as a summary, pre-bond, we were at 17.7, 50% SD. We were about 850 over, and then with the additional square footage and some of the site development costs, we are currently at 1.7. Currently, the budget maintains about 1.52 million in contingencies.
And we're not adding in our rock contingencies and some other things in that figure. We've still got those settings separate.
We've got a pretty healthy number still.
$650,000 for rock.
Yeah. We don't anticipate using all of it, but we're going to use some of it. So, yeah, we're going to encounter some rock up there for sure. Any questions?
Eric, will you ask, does that give equitable square footage to the upper grades with the lower grades?
Yes.
Yes, it does. For sure.
Thank you.
How much more, Dr. Moss, did he say there was going to be added square footage to that building?
Yes, we added approximately 3,000 square feet since we last spoke.
Okay, and then one last question. When they were going over the drawings of the building, which the building looks phenomenal, super happy to be part of this. You said something about closing in the upper, I'm assuming the balconies.
Yes,
Are
that's
they closed in from weather? Are they going to be able to be open, or are they closed in and that's where we're gaining square footage?
they're closed in, and that's where we're gaining some of our square footage.
Correct.
We feel like it's a more efficient use of the space long term.
Okay. I have no issue with that. Great. Thank you.
Any other questions? So next steps is we'd recommend the Board of Education to consider approval of design, the additional program and site requirements in the project budget in preparation for construction documents phase. If you recall back on that process slide, we showed design development, which is the phase we're currently in. What we anticipate is 100% design development being completed before the end of the year. Our plan then is to submit those to Crossland, and they're going to spend the first few weeks in January going through them in detail. At that point, we have had a lot of conversations about the building, what happens inside the building, and we've injected as much information as we can about the cost into the building so that we can make sure and capture that one last time at the end of January. So anticipate a budget update review at the end of January as well. We're still on track for completing package 1, which will be the site preparation, underground utilities at the end of February, and then that work will start sometime in March, April. Yep. And then construction starts, as Aaron says, April. And then we will complete 100% package 2 site and building in May of 2021, with construction completed August 2022.
When will the rock contingency, when will you know that?
Pretty quick.
So,
That's why we're getting an early package 1 out. That is
so
gonna-
pretty
that
quick
is
as
gonna be-
March or pretty quick as?
That is going to be an earthwork package, so we'll find out real quick.
I think April, May, we're going to know.
Okay.
We're going to know pretty quick.
And if you remember over the last, year or so, actually, we've been very careful to make transfers to our capital outlay fund and put a lot of our major building systems and such on rotation cycles. And so Dr. Langford and I have had conversations even during our bond phase and whatnot that we need to always know that that money is there. So we feel like we have ample funds in our cap outlay budget to take care of any overages that we would have that are reasonable as we progress through this system. So either way, we do not feel that we're putting the district budget in peril.
What does it look like, that capital outlay? Is it 2 million? Is it 600,000?
It's more than that. It's more than that.
Because if we take away our resources that we have for everything else to go towards the newest facility that will need the least.
Yeah, we've had extra set aside beyond what we've budgeted in cap outlay.
$8 million. $8 million. And that's what we're spending each year? That's just what you have set aside?
No.
What are you spending each year in capital outlay?
Oh, what we spent this year? Okay. Total expenditures and capital outlay. Now, last year, remember, we had $11 million pay off of those bonds, so we spent $14 million. So it's about 3.3, 3.5.
This process has been one that has taken a few years, and, you know, these next few months, they're going to be here tomorrow. And it's really exciting to see this project take place. I mean, it's happening, and we're excited and appreciate this update.
Do we have any new concerns about Columbia's
No,
stability?
we continue to monitor that. Of course, we know the safe room's not usable, but we still have our crack monitors, and what we have found is it's pretty much staying the same now for a while. For a while, that was accelerated, and now it seems to have settled down and pretty consistent from measurement to measurement. And I know whenever we get a report, I always ask Dave, and he lets us know. And so right now, you know, something could change tomorrow. But for now, it's holding fine.
Okay.
Good question.
So Monday night, we will have our special board meeting. And in that consideration, Chad, you need not only Kelsey Norman approval, but we'll consider the green light to move ahead with this as well.
That's correct. Yes.
So there's no action this evening?
Not unless the board should choose to do so.
I don't think we're allowed to.
Uh-huh.
Sunshine, I don't think we're allowed to.
We can wait.
Okay. Well, it was on the agenda. I didn't know. It's,
But not as an action item.
I got you.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Do we have Mandy?
Shelley, we might just have to try to get her by telephone. We got her PowerPoint.
Yes, we have a PowerPoint sheet.
Okay. Well, if we need to pull, if we can get her audio.
Yes.
Yeah, she could talk us through the PowerPoint.
Yeah. Well, in the meantime, we have our health and dental insurance reports. Dr. Langford, do you want to go ahead with that, or did Shelley have that item?
Shelley has a couple of little things she wanted to share. We discussed it this afternoon. I mean, it pretty well speaks for itself again, but
Yeah, there was just a few things I was going to just bring to your attention. Everything is pretty much the same as it has been, but we did make one little change on how we're collecting retirees' insurance. In the past, they always paid like on the 5th of the month that they were being insured for. But all employees have to pay the month in advance to get insurance. So we kind of got them on the same schedule as employees, so we moved that back. So you'll notice it looks like 2 months of insurance has been collected this month. But then it'll go on and normal out.
all we did is they would pay it on the 5th in the past, and we moved it to the last business day of the month. And it really gets it cleaned up because we were always having to deal with being in arrears with that. So for those who are retirees, that corresponds with the day they get the retirement check, so it's not imposed any burden on them.
Anything else on health and dental?
I just looked at that a little bit. If you take a look at it, we're still running pretty good. We're only down about 150,000. Again, that's rounding off from where our balance was a year ago. It'll be interesting, and hopefully the health of our staff will continue to be good. We won't have major claims, but do forewarn that when the COVID event became what it was in the spring, and hospitals quit doing elective type procedures, we actually kind of saw a decrease in the cost. So we may see an elevated increase, which then could potentially impact the balances going further. That said, we still are at $5.1 million in fund balances for the health fund, and it's still achieving its goals, and we think performing very well. But I just would want to throw that out. We could see that gap widen as we get into the year because the elective surgeries that were put off have now been carried on. Hopefully, we don't have people with major health crises that occur. But that's always a reality when you run a health plan.
I've got a number where I can call Mandy, so I'm going to call
Yeah,
her.
if we could just call her and we could put her PowerPoint up and let her just talk us through that. We could have her look at her computer and tell us when to advance it. And then if you want me to, Dr. Moss, Mr. President, on the financial statements. Again, they speak to themselves very well. The fund balances, and what I find very interesting is where we are in comparison with percentage of our budget received as compared to the prior year. It's kind of, for local and county, it's very close. And then for the other funds, incidental and teachers, we're running in real good shape there. So we always mitigate that by saying we've got some bills we're going to pay, which will change that. But the trend continues along as we projected.
Is that right? Okay, yes, that is fine. Yeah, I'm so sorry, I don't know what's going on. I don't know either. They said they were having trouble with Google Meets today, so I don't know if it's an issue or not. Okay, we're ready. Are we ready? Or
Well, it's the board's decision if they've heard enough about the finance, but the information's there.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay. I think we're ready, Mandy.
You ready? Okay. Hello, everybody. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm so sorry for all of the tech issues. I'm sure we're all getting plenty of experience with that this year. But I'll just kind of go through my presentation, and I'll just indicate when to turn the slide. But I'll just go through some highlights of the audit report, and then I would be glad to answer any questions you might have. Starting out on the first slide, we have our audit opinion. So this is on page 1, paragraph 6 of the audit report. Here we show an unmodified opinion. That means that the financial statements were presented fairly. So we came into audit, we didn't have any material adjustments to make. The financials were in good standing, so that's always a great place to start. Now, on the next slide, we have the district statement of activities for the year ended June 30th of 2020. And to the far left, we can see expenditures broken down by function. And so at the bottom there, you'll see total expenditures of about $95.4 million. Now, to the right of those, of that column, are program revenues that are going to come in to offset those expenditures. So here's where we would have any charges for services, any operating or capital grants and contributions that would have came in. And then to the far right, we have net expenditures of about $75.6 million. So just know that then those expenditures are covered by your general revenues. So your property taxes, sales tax, basic formula, those other revenues that are not presented on this slide. On the next slide, we have the district's cash balances as of June 30th of 2020. So you can see cash balances broken down by fund. And then if we skip ahead one more slide, this is an excerpt from the notes to the financial statement. Here we can see what those fund balances are comprised of. So you'll see in the general fund, there was about $915,000 that was restricted for scholarships. And then we had some monies that were assigned for student activities and food service. And then anything left in the general fund is, of course, left to pay your general operating expenditures. In the debt service fund, we can see there was about $34 million, which is, of course, restricted for future debt service payments. And then in the capital projects fund, we'll see about $1.9 million that was committed. This amount is for projects or contracts that had been approved before year end, but weren't completed until after year end. And then below that, in the capital projects fund, we have about $6.6 million of assigned funds, and these are just assigned for future capital projects. On the next slide here, we can see the district statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes fund balances. So at the top, we'll see revenues broken down by fund and by source. And to the far right, we can see total revenues of about $90.9 million. Now below that, you'll see expenditures broken down by fund and by function. And we'll see total expenditures of about $95.4 million. So red box on this slide is the net change in fund balance for the year, and you'll see that overall fund balance was decreased by about $4.5 million. Now this is primarily due to the capital projects fund. You'll see that that capital projects fund decreased by about $9.6 million. That was due to paying off the Series 2017 certificates of participation. So that was a large chunk there that dropped that balance down. But you'll see the very bottom line overall, all the way to the right, ending fund balances are still at $73.4 million for the year.
Could we point out,
Just a second, Mandy.
Mandy, be sure that we point out that the 73 million, 34 million of that is in debt service. Some of that's held to refund bonds that'll be paid off when they're callable. So that's not discretionary money. That is a good bit of that, the debt service.
But it points to Jeff's question earlier about capital projects and then our general revenue as well. Okay.
Okay, all right. The next slide here is an excerpt from the notes to the financial statement. So here we can see those total debt balances as of the year end, and we can see retirements on those payments, and there we'll see that participation certificates again, where that was paid off. On the next slide here, we'll just see future payments on that debt. So it looks like how it's presented here, or how the amortization schedules go, it shows that that will be paid off in 2033. And then I'm going to skip ahead one more slide here. We like to show some graphs during our audit presentation, just so the district can see how a historical picture of how things look from year to year. So this first slide is a comparison of revenues by source. So we can see as a percentage of revenues what total was made up of local revenues, what was county, state, and federal. And so we'll see here for this year under audit, local revenues were a little bit higher. State revenues were down about 5%, but federal was up a little bit. And we typically expect to see that. Typically when state is down, federal is up, or vice versa. And then the next slide shows the same sort of information, only for expenditures. So, of course, salaries and benefits are going to be our biggest chunk of expenditures. And we can see that they've been consistently around 80% the past few years, whereas purchase of services, supplies, those were relatively flat. And then the next slide, we show a couple of trends of the district. So the first graph here shows district reserves as of June 30th of 2020. Reserves were up about 6% from the prior year. So year end was about 41.88%. And then right below that, we see your average daily attendance, or your ADA. So ADA was also up. It was up about 70 from the prior year. So both of those are trending positively. The next slide here talks about compliance with state statutes. Now, during our audit, we look at compliance with state statutes specific to school districts in regards to purchasing, attendance, transportation, and budget. And we did report one immaterial instance of non-compliance with a state finding, and this was in regards to transportation. And I'll just flip on the next slide here, and we can see that for transportation, when we were auditing the numbers on the application for state transportation aid, we noted that there was an error in the reporting of riders. Now, it ended up that this was just an error in the formula, the way the information was summarized, but we had seen this, and this was corrected during the time of the audit, so that the correct information has been reported. But again, ridership has a pretty immaterial effect on transportation funding, so overall it was immaterial to the financials, but that's what this finding is over. Now, the next slide is in regards to internal controls. Now, we don't opine on internal controls, but we do look at them and analyze them to help determine the risk and scope of our audit. Now, we did not report any instances of deficiencies in internal controls over financial reporting. And the next slide is talking about internal controls over federal programs. And we didn't report any instances of non-compliance over federal programs or control deficiencies. If you go forward one more slide, this is just a summary of that information and showing that no deficiencies were reported over financial reporting or federal programs. And we audited Title, Special Education, and the COVID Education Stabilization Fund with major programs this year. So those were the specific federal programs that were audited. I'm going to skip 2 slides here, and this should show required communications at the top. So this is where we would report any general recommendations or just best practices of things we've seen throughout the audit or that we just wanted to report on. The first comment is in regards to credit card charges. When we looked at credit card charges, we noted a couple of examples of employees traveling out of town for conferences or meetings, and we just noted a few examples where an employee attended a conference, but there wasn't a conference schedule or an agenda attached to the purchase. We would just recommend that employees provide that with their documentation of their credit card purchase or employee recommendation, just to have that to support the business purpose of the trip. It also might show whether meals were provided on the trip, the duration of the conference, that sort of information that would help support the business purpose. We also saw a few examples of purchases on the Amazon card where shipping was a charge that was charged to the credit card. We would just recommend that when possible, employees are using the district Amazon account and getting free shipping if possible, but we know that that's not always the case. So if there is an instance where they have to go from a certain vendor which charges shipping, you might just have them document that on the purchase as to why that had to be charged. And so this is just a refresher on credit card policies to the employees to make sure that the business purpose is substantiated and that the district isn't paying any additional costs that they don't need to. The next slide here is on fundraising controls. We have previously had a recommendation on fundraising for the fundraising sponsors or groups to provide a fundraising application, which gets approved, and then after the fundraiser, that it be the revenues and expenses be reconciled. And this is a way to determine whether the fundraising is profitable and whether it should be a recurring event. Well, we found that these applications are being provided more often, but when we looked at one specific fundraiser, we noted that the general ledger reported about $120,000 of revenues, whereas when we took all of the fundraising applications and added those up, we only got about $50,000 of revenues. So what this shows is that it didn't look like these applications were getting turned in consistently across the board. So we would just recommend that a reminder be put out for these fundraising applications, that there's a reconciliation done after the fact, to ensure that they're profitable and to also ensure that what the fundraiser shows revenue and expenses were tied to the general ledger. And then on the next slide here, this is a comment in regards to transportation overhead. So every year when we come into audit, we look at transportation costs and we try and project out for the next year whether the district, what their efficiency is going to look like and what their transportation funding is going to look like. And we determine whether we can move any additional administrative costs to transportation. What happens when we calculate this is based on a couple of factors in a calculation from DESI, and these factors are changing often, so we can only use the data available at that time. So what we do is when we audit, we not only do a projection, but we also do a look back. So we look back at the previous year, we see what has changed in that calculation and determine if the district is able to go back and allocate additional funds. This year when we did it, we went back to 2019 and found that those factors had changed enough where it would be beneficial for the district to allocate some additional costs. So we worked with the district to move additional costs to transportation in 2019, which will result in about $22,000 of additional transportation funding from the district. So we just wanted to highlight that. But that concludes my presentation. We really appreciate everybody's help at central office. Shelley and her team did great. I know it was different this year being virtual, with most of us being virtual and one on site, but we really appreciate the flexibility and cooperation with that. But that being said, do you all have any questions for me?
I don't see any, Mandy.
Okay, well, perfect. I know that was super fast, and I'm so sorry we're having tech issues, so I couldn't see you all, but thank you for letting me call in, and we just really appreciate everybody's help during the audit and their relationship, so thank you all, and I hope you all have a great holiday.
We would echo that, Mandy. Having our auditors visit us has not been met with dread, and we're happy and want to commend our finance staff as well as all of our principals and directors for their good work and that we've come out with an excellent audit report. Thank you.
Yes, thank you guys. Yes. All right, well, you all have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I just press pop off, right? And then that clears that. Okay. Is there anything else on financials, Sharon?
I don't think so. I think that takes us through our superintendent's data report. Are there any public comments this evening, Pat?
No.
Thank you. That brings us to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. It's been moved and seconded by Derek that we approve our consent agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. That brings us to our regular agenda, the approval of the 2019-20 audit report It was just given to us. Dr. Langford and Shelley talk.
I don't think there's any more, unless you have questions, but basically the board has to formally accept the audit report that you have at your desk here. You have the complete report in your hands. You've heard the overview that was given and been given the opportunity to ask questions. And so with your approval of this, we will then publish in the local newspaper, as is required, the financial statement for the school year, and then this will be submitted electronically to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and then we will be in compliance with the annual audit that is required because of federal monies.
I move we approve the 2019-2020 audit report as presented.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'll second.
Thank you, Brent. It's been moved and seconded that we approve our 2019-20 audit report with thanks to our financial team and also our friends at Westbrook and Company. I thought it was an excellent report. I also appreciated the deficiencies that were noted and where we can work to improve, and I'm sure that we will do that.
If I could, Mr. President, on the deficiencies, for instance, if we remember how crazy the year ended last year, and we have handicapped buses, we have early childhood buses, we have regular route buses, we have lots of things going on. It is a thing that does remind us that we need to double check, but we had a period of time between we quit running buses and we submitted this information. So not to say that that's an excuse, but it is maybe contributed to that problem. When we take a look at the situation on the credit cards, the Amazon thing, we've already dealt with that, and we're not going to be making little $5 purchases from Amazon. It works great at home, but it doesn't work well because of the cost even of processing those. And then you throw a shipping charge on a small item. So Shelley is working with the schools, and we have a limit, which is pretty low, but it's not that they can't use them, but it's just not going to be at discretion. If we come back on the other credit card things, we've looked through some of the issues. We have an understanding of why they happened, and we're working to make sure that we get the proper documentation there. If we go back and look at the situation on their recommendation, as she said, the rules change, and if we're paying their audit bill, that one piece of work that they did paid for 2/3 of our cost of audit. So, you know, when it's all said and done, this was an excellent audit if you consider all the moving parts, and especially in this year that was anything but normal.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doctor. Does anybody have any additional questions? Please vote.
Yes.
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 Derek?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Hey,
That-
Sherrick,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to have to cut out now. I've got to go in and get practice started.
Thank you for
So if I
joining
don't
us.
talk to anybody before Christmas, everybody have a great holiday, and we'll see you afterwards.
Thank you. You too,
Okay,
Derek.
thank you, Derek.
Thank you, guys. Have a great one.
That brings us to our accounts payable. Dr. Langford has talked.
We have the bill listing as normal, list all the items that we're going to be taking care of as far as the accounts payable are concerned. But again, I like to go back, and she showed you comparative data. I've always believed that comparative data and trends tell you the biggest thing about what is happening in your personal finance, your school finance, and so forth. So if we look at a year ago at this meeting, which was held early, which meant our payments were less, we spent $3,491,000, or $3.5 million. This year, we're spending $3.7. And so we're very close. We're really running. So now just looking at these and indicators, when you look at the revenue report next month, we're still going to be tracking well within our budget as far as expenditures are concerned. So I would recommend, or if you have questions, we'd try to answer those, but would recommend that you approve this accounts payable list that's been presented.
Motion to approve?
Thank you, Mike.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jeff. You beat you. Is there any discussion on payment of our bills? Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. That brings us to authorization of negotiated advertising and agreements to purchase a video scoreboard and to upgrade the press box at our legendary Jung Field. Dr. Saketa.
Okay, so over the last several years, we have been contemplating upgrading the facility at Jung. And two of the things that we've discussed extensively is having a video scoreboard. And also, because of our fantastic program, Jet HD, and the number of kids that we have affiliated with that during the course of the production of a game, we wanted to expand their experience at being more of a classroom experience in conjunction with helping the fan experience and everything else. And to do that, we also felt very strongly that we ran out of room in our press box. The press box was added on to at least once in the last probably 50 years. And with the number of people involved in game day activities when it comes to coaches, radio, potentially television folks, and then obviously our folks, our kids. I mean, we need to be able to have our kids up in the booth, working the controls of a video board. We have pitched the idea and thought about, how important it would be to expand the press box. But to be able to do that, we felt very strongly that we need to do that through an advertising agreements and not, based on the basic operational funds of the district. So Matt Hyatt's here, and we've been talking about this for a long time. He's done extensive work and review of the video scoreboards that are out there. We've had conversations with construction folks and designers about what a potential add-on to the press box would be. Dave Pettit's been highly involved in that. I appreciate his work as well. And so we wanted to talk to you about what we're thinking about and just let Matt tell you a little bit about it, and then we'll talk to you about what our action item intends to try to accomplish.
Well, I can't take any of the credit. It's been a great team effort with Dr. Saketa and Dave, and Dr. Moss has been involved, as well as Dorothy Alsons and various other school personnel at a time. And I think Dr. Saketa hit it on the head that as far as the press box goes, we certainly need an expansion there. That we're cramming 4 coaches and all the equipment now that it takes to put on a high school football game into a box that's just, about as wide as this table and about 6 feet deep or so. And as well as Jet HD, they have 2 boxes in there, and they're cramming. They have 25 kids or so that's involved every night on their video production, and they're cramming kids in those boxes as needed too. And so we think we agree that Jung Stadium is legendary, as Mr. Dermott said, and a fixture in our community, and something that we are very proud of, and also something that we want to put resources into to keep upgrading for our kids and our spectators. So we believe the video board and the press box expansion would be a key piece to the experience that we're able to offer both for our spectators and our kids.
As Matt said, Dorothy Alsens has been working very hard on the packages that we would give to potential advertisers. And we feel very strongly and very confident that we're going to be able to raise the money necessary. And we want to make it very clear that the first priority would be the video board. And once we get the money raised, signed and authorized contracts to be able to do that, then we would put an RFP out for that. And then the press box would be second. And if we get what's necessary to do that, then the expansion of the press box would come along after that.
Matt, is there a vision for what the press box might look like?
There is. We've had some preliminary discussions on what we're talking about, and basically it would be a 25-foot expansion on each side of the press box to allow Jet HD more space, our booths for coaches and radio and that type of thing to expand well. And a lot of that expansion is going to Jet HD, so we don't have to cram as many kids into that space. They have room for their technology and their boards and that type of thing, to put on a quality production. And then some of that extra space would be required for the components to run the video board as well, which would also be kid-driven as well. We envision Jet HD creating content for that with the help of whoever we select to provide the video board, and for those kids to run that on a Friday night, which is a a growing industry, because video boards are so prevalent now that as those kids leave, high school and college, that's a potential route they could go.
Now, I understand the intent is to get the board's support, but this is going to be a community-funded project. And if the funds are not raised to be able to support that, it becomes a different discussion. But right now, you're looking for support so that we can go out and make those contracts to be able to fund the opportunity.
Exactly. 100% of both projects would be funded completely over time by the advertising agreements with community sponsors. Yes.
And is that 800,000 both projects?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's both projects.
And we've had a lot of interest shown quickly.
Yes.
And we're feeling very confident that we'll get to that 800,000.
Yeah, it's been amazing so far, with the interest from the community. So very blessed.
We're
to be part
very
of it.
excited right now.
I move that we authorize our board president to sign a negotiated advertising agreements during the fundraising phase of this project.
Second that.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Jeff. It's been moved and seconded that we approve this recommendation to the board. Is there any additional discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you, Mr. Hyatt, for being here this evening.
Thank you.
That brings us to our next item on the agenda. That is the proposed new elementary school naming committee. Dr. Saketa.
Per our policy, board policy, we need to determine a name for the new elementary school at Dover Hill. We've all talked about that, and we knew this day was coming. This is an exciting time. And so like we've done in the past where we've named things inside the building, this time we're going to name the outside the building. So we brought some folks over to Columbia and West Central in October, and we looked at some of the, what I would call some of the relics and some of the really neat traditional features in the building, some of the molding, some of the things on the outside of the building, the framing of the windows, and certain things that could potentially be brought into the new facility to kind of give it, whether it be in an area or in a corner, in the media center or wherever, to give it a little bit of feel of the old school, or at least remember the history from a real well-done, thought-out type activity. Some of those folks that were in that group agreed and would love to serve on a naming committee, and some of their names are listed here. For instance, Brad Belk was involved, Mark Bard was involved at that time as well, and Brett Engel and Shelley Lundeen, of course. Because our policy talks about community members, potentially board members, and students, we're excited about the students. We have two students, one that went to West Central Elementary and one that went to Columbia Elementary. So we're excited about that. They're both high school kids and very good students and will be well interested and well represented. We could probably add another member or two if you have an idea of somebody, and we also would like to have a board member. So we could, expanding to a couple or three more positions here would be fine. Senator Cantwell's also volunteered if we need an extra person or two. So we'd love to have a board member, and we'd love to get approval to go forward with the naming committee and probably commence the committee in early January. Hopefully bring something to the January board meeting with a name proposed.
Thank you, Dr. Saketa. Board members, is there anybody that you want to nominate to serve on this committee?
Sheriff, are you interested in being on?
I would, but I am absolutely open to anyone else serving as well, as opposed to me.
I would be interested.
You would be? Great. Then let's, I would
We
nominate
could have
Lori.
two, couldn't we?
Yeah. Yep, you can have two.
Lori's taking advantage of her tenure at Columbia. She probably deserves this more than anybody. Are we okay with that, folks? Do we take a vote on that, Doctor? I don't really know if that's an action item in and of itself.
Well, we
Not for that,
need-
but for the approval.
For the approval of the
people that are on
naming
it.
committee, and it would be fine if you stated who among you is going to serve as board member.
And then if we want to add somebody else, that would be fun, up to our discretion if that's okay. And if you don't have
Dr.
anybody
Saketa,
else.
my wish would be that Lori definitely is on it, and if there's room for two, I'd be willing to serve as well, but I definitely want Lori Musser on there. So,
I would move that we approve the proposed naming committee for the new elementary school to be located at Dover Hill, which would include Lori Musser and Sheriff DeMont.
thank you, Brent. Is there a second? Thank you, Jeff. It's been moved and seconded. We approve what Brent just said. Is there any discussion on that matter? Please vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Shaketa.
All right, thank you two for agreeing to serve.
It's an honor. We have the removal and replacement of existing intercom system at Soaring Heights and East Middle School. That's an action item for Dr. Shaketa. It's like Mr. Pettit is coming up.
Okay. Dave has extensive details on this because he's handled all the work orders and went through the specifications with our electrician, Harold Lewis, on this, and they've just dealt with lots of issues over at East. The intercom system's well outside of the warranty period, and one of the issues I think that we face more than anything is the fact that it's hard to find somebody locally to work on the product, and the product we think is maybe not able to handle it as well as we thought it would. But I'm going to let Dave tell you a little bit about that, some of the trials and tribulations. And also, one of the things we want to point out to you is that the two close bidders are local vendors that we've used both of them extensively in the past. So we have a lot of confidence in that moving forward with this.
In the past 2.5 years, going back to our work order system that we currently use, I was able to come up with 10 explicit work orders that we've had to deal with that over the course of that amount of time. There have been, I know, at least a handful of other opportunities that our electrician's been caught when he's out there and been asked to take a look at that. The system out there, every system that's installed, and even these included with the bids that we have, carry a 1-year warranty, parts and labor. So we are past that warranty period. I believe, in my opinion, that there were two things that contributed to the demise of that system. The first is that we believe it was probably slightly undersized for the 220,000 square feet in that building of Soaring Heights and East Middle School. And then also believe that at the time that was installed, that particular format and the technology was on the latter end of its life cycle in what was installed. And so those two things together with the fact that it had been pushed pretty hard and it was maxed out have led to, like I said, its early demise. And so we are looking at replacing the system. The good thing is that all the existing wiring, the speakers that are in place are going to be able to be reused. So we're essentially replacing all of the hardware part and the software that would go along with that. We received 3 bids, pretty tight as the numbers were together. Both of those first 2 bids are local companies that we do business with quite a bit currently. And so we are bringing to you the bid of $27,299 from TCI as a recommendation.
Thank you, Dave. I'd like to thank you for bringing 3 bids to us. Sometimes we have difficulties finding bidders, and I'm glad that we have 3 this evening, and it's clear we're getting a pretty accurate bid. It looks like they're all pretty similar, so looks like it's kind of a trustworthy thing we're looking at here.
What's the typical lifespan of an audio or system like this?
Well, if I go back to the existing buildings that we built post-tornado, this is the only one that I'm aware of that we've had difficulty with over the course of time from that section. The middle schools that were built and came online in 08, 09, we've had some difficulty with the system at North Middle School, but I would anticipate realistically that we should be able to get 14, 15, 16 years typically out of the system.
Are we required to use the lowest bid when we get bids? I mean, these 2 bids were $43 difference.
Yeah, $143. We are not required to in our quotes that we receive unless we have reason to exclude, either due to whatever knowledge we have of the existing system. We can exclude that and go with the next bid. But in this particular case, we could find no reason to not go with the lowest bid.
But isn't TEC doing all your cameras and security cameras at the schools, the grade schools?
They do most of that, but TCI does most of our fire alarm systems for the district as well.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Mike.
One second.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the purchase from TCI. Is there any discussion? Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you, Dave. That brings us to classroom furniture for Kelsey Norman. Dr. Saketa.
Well, we're going to have this brand spanking new, beautiful almost 9,000 square foot addition, so we need to put furniture in it, and it's not like we can go cobble up a bunch of furniture around the district to put in it. So we put an RFP out. We had several furniture companies that were hitting us up about wanting to do, obviously, the whole project. And we tried to see who was really interested. And you can see on the second page that we were all over the place when it came to bidding. We had several of the, or at least half of the bidders did not propose all the items, so it was very hard to go with them exclusively. And then we had three others that really, for the most part, had a large majority of the products that we thought had the best values for the district and at the best price. So Dave volunteered to work with me several hours, several days, I guess. We looked at this. And we also got our facility assessment team involved and added Jason Cravens, who purchased the furniture for the district, after the tornado. We wanted his expertise as well as Julie Munn. So we ran through item by item, and we felt like this was our little incubator for the big project at Dover Hill, too, because a lion's share of what we're going to get at Dover Hill is also going to be in this project outside the media center and the cafeteria, at least the types of products in the classroom. So we really looked at it real close with a fine-tooth comb, and what we come up with, and as Dave said when we talk about bids, we asked the bidders to allow us to buy item by item rather than the whole thing. And so we went through and we looked at the weights, capacities of chairs, and just 1,000 things. Long story short, we learned a lot, and we were able to whittle it down to where we could have a cost savings based on buying completely from one of the three at the top that had bid all the products. And what I want to tell you is what we learned is we feel very strongly that when every company bids that type of many different products from that many types of different manufacturers, you're going to get a lot of different quality differences. And that's a concern to us. And so that's why we broke it out like it did. And this is really going to inform how we go forward. And our goal at Dover will be to, be very cost effective, but with quality stuff. So that's what we're really aiming at. So we would like to recommend that the board allow the district to purchase items from Freedom Interiors, 11 items selected for $59,438.60, and school specialty, five items for $13,427.52, and SSI Furnishings, 3 items selected for $8,220, and then it's an $81,086.12 project.
And Carrie, I'd like to point out too, because they're humble, but I passed by Carrie's conference room and saw he and Dave working on this. He is not exaggerating at all when he says hours, if not days, they spent on this. And it would have been more simpler just to put that package out and see what it comes in. But they did extreme due diligence, and that FF&E line item in your Kelsey Norman budget, which we didn't talk about tonight with what Chad was proposing, but this has come in under budget.
Yep.
And if I remember right, Carrie, was it about $22,000?
Yeah, well, the whole FF&E budget's $131,000, and this one is at least 8,000 under one of the bids and as much as 17 or 20 under the others. And so our goal, Eric is also purchasing touchscreen monitors for the kids out of that group, and our goal is to come in well under the 131 there, which would help apply back to this. So and so when you think of that multiplied big time at Dover, we really got some goals to shoot at to help bring those costs down. I think there's 992,000 in there for FF&E. So between Eric and Dave and I, we're going to be trying to get the best we can in there, best value, and also make sure it's cost effective.
For our listening audience, FF&E is furniture, fixture, and equipment. So
Yes.
Yes.
Is there a motion out there? Yes, Jeff, go ahead.
My question was the idea to cherry pick. Do you do that with most options, or is this a new strategy? Because it seems to have gotten you 10% less than the lowest offer.
Well, it's a lot easier to go back and say, yeah, we'll take everything from one of those three bidders. And but when we started looking at everything, it's not a new option. But this is such a unique. Furniture's unique because you've got so many different kind of items. You've got these kind of tables. You've got other kind of tables. You've got media center furniture. You've got cafeteria tables. And what happens is, what we're learning is the dealers, because this is their world, they'll buy a significant amount from one particular manufacturer, and then to make up a big order, they cherry pick all over the country to others. And so what we're going to try to do is really come in with a standard specification of everything and be very strict about that whenever the bids come in, and put in the cherry pick idea, because we feel like that's the best value for us.
And when it makes sense to do so. I've seen examples of that in food service.
Right.
So.
Yeah, Rick Kinkel's very good at that.
Thank you. I make a motion we approve the item as presented. Thanks, guys.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. It's been moved and seconded, Jeff and Mike, that we approve this as presented to the board. We thank you for your time and effort. Please vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Deb? May have lost her.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. I think that passes, and if Deb,
Yes.
there she is. There we go. Didn't mean to pass you. That takes us next to replacement of van number 24. We're staying with Dr. Saketa.
Okay, Dave can tell you a little bit more about this, but we lost a van recently due to an accident, and unfortunately, with the result of the accident, it was a sad situation on the other end. But we have to replace this van, and Dave has come up with some bids, and you want to tell him a little bit about that?
Sure. The van was listed as totaled with our insurance company due to the accident on November 4th. We solicited bids from multiple vendors. We actually received 4 back, and those are shown there for a 3/4 ton, 8-cylinder van, which I thought we got some fantastic pricing. And so we didn't want to have to replace it, but since we're needing to replace it, I think that we're getting a really good value here. And so we will be paying for this out of the 2021 budget and savings that we've made with some other capital outlay expenditures. And so we're looking at recommending going with Hatfield Chevrolet for $25,514.
Is there any insurance on that?
Yeah, that's noted in your fiscal notes statement that we
Very
haven't
little.
gotten that settlement amount from our insurance, but of course we would apply that as well.
Are there 23 other vans?
Sorry?
Are there 23 other vans? This is van 24.
Well, all of our vehicles are numbered.
Numbered,
This
okay.
just happens to be vehicle 24 may be a better statement.
Yeah, great. Good question.
People think we've got a fleet of vehicles picking people up.
Yeah, I like it.
I move that we approve the purchase for van replacement of number van 24 with the bid approved from J. Hatfield Chevrolet in the amount of $25,514.
Thank you, Brent. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the bid from J. Hatfield for the van number 24. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. That brings us to our 5th grade Chromebooks. Still Dr. Shiketa.
Okay, and Eric's going to contribute a lot to this. Recently, one of the things that we've been talking about a lot is when we expanded down to the 6th and 7th grade with Chromebooks, we were able to do that a lot because, for the most part, because we went from Apple, which was a more expensive product, to the Chromebooks. And we felt like we would still, as you know, we did a lot of research, and we still felt like we could still get everything we needed for the students with the Chromebooks, and it allowed us to move down and still save money. At the same time, we're always thinking about, okay, you've added more Chromebooks along the way, how do you sustain that? You know, what is the cost to sustain that? So we just recently found out that we were able to get a little bit more CARES money available to us to spend. And so we ran through the same process again. So what Eric and his team did is looked at how far down into the elementaries can we ensure that every student would be able to have their hands on a Chromebook during the course of the day without interruption. And so what we felt most comfortable with was extending it down to the 5th grade level. Now, that doesn't mean they're necessarily going to take them home, but they would, for instance, if they were home for a long period of time with an illness potentially. But they would have access to a Chromebook at school. Eric, you want to talk about that?
Well, we do have enough Chromebooks. I mean, we could opt at the 5th grade, but it would take away from all the elementary students that are there. So one reason we're doing this is to make sure that everybody has access to the technology, to the ability, while making 5th grade one-to-one. And then we talked a little bit about sustainability too, and then we think we can comfortably, over the 4 years, all of our one-to-one would be replaced within a 4-year cycle.
How many Chromebooks in this?
600.
600, okay.
And the main thing was, is Eric put a little matrix together that had each year we would be purchasing a new set of Chromebooks for particular grade levels. We felt very good about the number it would be annually to keep that moving versus what we'd been paying before when we used the Apple products.
Thank you, Dr. Shiketa. Does anybody have any additional questions of Dr. Shiketa concerning the purchase of Chromebooks? Again, it is currently being paid from CARES Act funds.
Yes.
Do I have a motion?
I'd make a motion that we approve the purchase of Chromebooks for 5th grade students as presented.
Thank you, Jeff.
Second.
Thank you, Mike. It's been moved and seconded that we approve this purchase. Please vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
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 Yes. That brings us to the contract with Maximum Healthcare Services for private duty nursing service. Ms. Cantwell, welcome.
We have a student with medical needs that are significant enough to require one-on-one nursing care around the clock. Megan has been working with Maximum Healthcare to get the contract, so you can.
Yes, so the contract that we worked out with them would allow for that student nurse that already has an established relationship with the family to come to school with the student and provide the necessary care for that student to access the education.
And because it's part of the student's IEP and it's determined by the IEP team that this is necessary, and because the child is at the early childhood, I listed with Bessie, and it is 100% reimbursable while the child is in early childhood, so that will be helpful.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Megan. Does anybody have any questions concerning this agenda item?
I would make a motion that we approve the attached contract with Maximum Healthcare Services.
Thank you, Brent.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jeff. It's been moved and seconded we approve this agenda item. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you all very much.
And I think I'm doing the next 2%.
Great. Okay, that brings our policy updates from first reading. Oh,
And actually, these are the ones that Brent talked about earlier,
Yes.
the sexual health instruction. We have worked with several community members and counselors to come up with a plan, and we have a curriculum that we're using as a pilot with our sixth graders that is comprehensive to see if that's something we can want to use with the others. We already have Life Choices who comes in and works with 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, and they already knew about the requirement from DESE to mandate and have updated their curriculum, and so we're ready to roll with this. And we mandate from DESE. We want to go slow to go fast, though, as we do this.
I think we'll take them together, so.
Okay, and the next one, I know that you talked about it, Brent, to update, the language that was changed is adding board members. You have to, who are mandated reporters, and they have to do 2.5 hours of training the first year and thereafter 1 hour a year. So that was the change that was made to that policy.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve these policy updates for first reading?
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Brent. Is there any discussion on these? Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. That brings us to our plus deltas this evening. Anyone?
I want to say thank you to Dr. Saketa and Dave and that team. I mean, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars under budget, literally a $10,000 savings, and within that, we get the best quality furniture. I just think that's incredible. So I think that's
And I would like to second that, Brent.
that's a great plus.
Thank you, Terry and team.
I'm good. Yeah, I think that we missed doing a COVID update this meeting, and I see that as a negative because there's some positive things that have happened, and I think we need to talk about it the next year and our first meeting.
Okay. Anyone else?
I would second that, Jim.
Well, I was kind of making notes as we were going through our agenda and looking for some pluses. And I think we saw a lot of evidence tonight of financial stability, not only in our audit report, but also the financial statements, the health and dental insurance, and just those several sheets that we saw within our audit report. There was a lot of evidence of that. And then evidence of community support, because we're here tonight talking about a bond election that passed with a 79% approval rating, and we're bringing that along, and Kelsey Norman is now under budget, and we're hoping when we go to bid day with our site at Dover Hill, if we see a similar 8% under with our bid day, that's great news for our district. And then not only that, but the enthusiasm around being able to then, during a COVID time, be able to come confidently that we have the community support and the excitement generating around our improvements at Jung Stadium. Because I don't think even just 3-4 years ago we would have seen that opportunity. So it encourages me, and it makes me feel good about our district going forward.
Well, this being our last meeting of 2020.
Except for Monday.
Except for Monday's special. I just want to say that it has been a challenging year on many levels, and I appreciate everybody hanging tight with us as we try to ride these waves. I'd like to thank our district, our students, our parents, our teachers, our faculty and staff, and this board for their conscious efforts to get through this thing as best as we can. So I appreciate that, and I consider it a plus, and recognize within that there's been a lot of deltas.
I would move that we adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn this meeting. Merry Christmas, everyone. Please vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
We need to hear.
I know, it's burning up at the moment. Not that they turned it off, the wind off, it's just now Bermuda over here.
And the whole time I've been up here not